Welcome back. Today we're going to do a review on Renzetti Presentation 4000 and the Peak Rotary Vise. A couple of months back I had some parts go down on the Renzetti that I had to replace, and it was going to take a while for them to get in. And I've been looking for an excuse to pick up a Peak to tie on that a little bit, just to see how it is. So I took the opportunity, went ahead and did that. Got the Peak in. It is a good vise. There is no question about it. It was a little bit stickier on the rotary function than what I was used to with the Renzetti. Just a touch. I mean, if I would have started on this right here, I'm sure that I would have loved it. I mean, it's a great vise. It really is. The thing's built like a tank. I mean, you can't mess this thing up. It's one of the most stout rotary vices I think I have ever seen. So much so that I stole the clamp. Let me see here. Let me get this out. So much so that I stole the clamp from the Peak and I use it on the Renzetti now. I like the design on this so much better. You can see, hold this up here. Here's your clamp. I mean, that thing is just, it is rock solid. And the adjustment is all on the top right here. So even on a beveled table like I tie on, well, I used to, I cut some holes in here so I wouldn't have as much walk or anything. But even on a beveled table, this thing's gonna clamp down so much better. It's got that all thread running through there, and then it has two guide pins. It just, that thing, it is rock solid when it's on when you clamp that down on the vise or on the bench. The traditional C clamp that most everybody else uses, it's good, it's functional, but every once in a while when you're really wrenching down on a hook or something, it may walk a little bit on you. This thing, there's no walk whatsoever. It is locked into place. So I did steal the Peak C clamp, and I use that on the Renzetti as my full-time vise. I'll still tie on this one every once in a while. I do some deer hair work with it. I bend all my hooks on this one. This thing, like I said, it is just solid. There is, I don't know. You get a hook in there, and I've even bent up to 2/0 on the gommies, and no slip whatsoever. I mean, it takes a little bit more to get this in, to get this dialed in. Here's your adjustment for the jaws right here. This is a little bit more of a fine-tune adjustment, adjusting your jaws on the Renzetti right there. It dials it in just a little bit better, but once you get this dialed in and you have it, once you hit the sweet spot on that Peak, it's not going anywhere. Another difference that I found on the rotary function on this, where I prefer the Renzetti a little bit, you'll be able to see this right here. This beveled portion right there on the Renzetti, your finger, when you're using that, my finger just sits right there, and I always wind up catching that bevel and I don't slip off of that portion. When I'm rotating this one right here, let me figure out how to do this. When I'm rotating this one, I'll just take this back out for now. When I rotate this one, my finger tends to slip off of this because it's one just slick piece going the whole way down. My finger tends to slip off of that, and I don't get the consistency that I have with the Renzetti. I mean, my finger almost never slips off of that, so it's a little bit more functional in that regard. It's a little bit more user-friendly for the rotary function. Now, Peak does make an attachment for this, and basically what it is, it's just a thumb screw, and it sits out of the 90, and you can just hold on to that and crank it. But I don't know, I couldn't get used to it. I got so used to this portion on the Renzetti. I have this piece somewhere, I can't find it, but like I said, I mean, it's just this piece that sits off at a 90, and then you can just turn it and crank it manually. It just felt a little bit awkward to me. Nothing wrong with it. Like I said, I'm sure if I had started out on that, I would have grown accustomed to it, and that's what I would have known. A lot of preferences, whether it comes down to vices, whether it's bobbins, whether it's a truck you drive, whatever it is, it's all in what you get used to. I mean, there's a lot of good qualities to everything. It's just what you get used to, and then you wind up tailoring your style to what you're working with. The bobbin cradles, not a real big difference between the two. Peak has that real, distinct design right there. It's got the little mountains and everything. It holds them in good. It does the same thing as this. Really not a big difference between the two on that. The adjustments, like I alluded to earlier on the jaws and everything, the adjustments seem to be a little bit more fine-tuned on the Renzetti, to where if you want to tighten, if you want to tighten this down a little bit, you can slow your rotation down. If you want to loosen it up, you can have a free flow. This one on the Peak, it seems like it's just, it's not as a fine tune of an adjustment. So right here is what will adjust how your rotary function travels. And then you can see, like, let me just go where I had it right there. I mean, that's loose, it'll free flow, and then I just barely touch this, and then it tightens up, okay? And then it gets to the point to where it's really rigid. It seems like there's a range of adjustment a little bit finer on the Renzetti between the free flow, and then you barely touch it, and then it's really tense on that rotation. And this is just me nitpicking. I tied quite a few flies on that Peak, and I was really happy with it. I felt a little bit slower on it than I do on the Renzetti. That's why I went back once I got the parts in. This is my primary vise, but I still do tie on this thing. Like I said, this thing has a lot of function, a lot of uses to it. It's a freaking tank. What else do we got that I wanted to highlight? The material clips right here. You can see there's a lot more range on that Renzetti than there is on that Peak right there. And this one's a little bit more rigid. You have to move it around a little bit. You have to almost put two hands on it to move that. This one moves a little bit freer. I'm sure I could clean that up a little bit and free it up some, and it would move a little bit easier. But you're limited on your range that you can go. Like this is your max right there, to where I have this entire width, and even if I want to go down across my elbow or across the bend, I still have that option. With the Peak, I'm limited to that probably 1 inch range, to where sometimes if you're tying bigger flies, shorter flies, it may be a little tough to get your back hook into the material clip, but overall not a deal breaker at all. I mean, I could tie on that thing and be completely happy with it. Let me see, what else was there I wanted to highlight? Pedestals. I am not a pedestal fan. I don't like them. There's the Presentation 2000. I originally started tying on this probably close to 10 years ago now, before I went to the 4000. The pedestals I don't really like. I see some folks out there now that are doing like the really heavy granite pedestals. I guess I could see where that would be a benefit, especially, me tying mainly bigger streamers and a lot of deer hair work. When I'm working on deer hair, like I've broken 3 or 4 right bobbins just because I pull down on them so tough. The pedestals seem to rock on me a little bit. If you add a little bit of weight with the granite or whatever it may be, it would keep that rock from, it would eliminate the wobble that you have on the pedestal. But me, I've grown so accustomed to tying on a C-clamp. That's just what I prefer to tie with. There's no right or wrong way. Whatever you like is whatever works best for you is fine. Me personally, I like the C-clamps though, and especially the upgraded Peak C-clamp. I can't praise that thing enough. It is just, it's unbelievable. They sell these things too, and I think you can pick them up online. Peak sells just their clamps. I think they're $30 or somewhere in that neighborhood. If you want to upgrade to your C-clamp, that's the way to go. I can't recommend it enough. Let me see here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm looking these things over. I don't think there's anything else that I really wanted to cover. There's not a whole lot of difference. Oh, the your vertical adjustment on the Peak versus the Renzetti. This one's a little bit more rigid. It's a little sticky moving it up and down. With the Renzetti, you have the dual adjustment. You can adjust your swivel on that right there, which you can also do here. Once again, this one swivels a lot easier. You can see I can just take and spin that with my fingers. With the Peak, it's a little bit more rigid. It's just a little bit more sticky is the best way that I can explain it. And then, like I said, the vertical adjustment, it takes a little bit more force. This Teflon one right here, you can slide that up and down really easy, and then it has a stop right there that allows as a backup, so it stays a little bit more consistent. Outside of that, there's just some few subtleties that I wanted to highlight. I wouldn't be opposed to tying on either one of them full time. I have my preference with the Renzetti, but if I had started out on the Peak, chances are I would have already tailored my tie-in to the Peak, and there would have been things that took me a while to get used to on the Renzetti. Bottom line, you can't go wrong with either one. This one sits around 150. This one sits around 375-ish, I think. I can't remember the exact price. I'd have to look it up. I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 400. And then this one, like I said, is like 150, 170, somewhere about that. So a little bit better of a value money-wise. If you're looking, to not spend $400, this is a great option. It's a little bit cheaper. Well, it's considerably cheaper, about half the price, and it's still going to do the same thing for you. You're just going to have to tailor your tie-in to the vise, and you can do some mods and everything to really make it how you want it. I know a lot of guys that tie on the Peaks, and they love them, and I can see why. It's just they absolutely love tying on them. The one vise that I have not been able to embrace at all is the Regals. For whatever reason, I can't stand tying on them. I know a lot of folks do. A lot of folks get used to them. A lot of folks swear by them. I can't. I had one. I sold it. I couldn't tie on it. I just felt clumsy. I was slow. It's just too bulky, and I don't know. It just didn't fit me. A lot of folks hate. A lot of folks tie on them. A lot of folks love them. I'm not one of them. One of these two would be my pick. Depending on what you want to spend, what your preferences and everything are. Hopefully I ran through the differences between the two, what I liked about them, what I thought could use some improvements or modded, whatever it may be. But if you guys have questions or comments, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Don't beat me up if you're a Regal fan. I just don't like them, my personal opinion. That's alright, you're not going to hurt my feelings, but don't beat me up too bad about it. If you guys have questions or comments, like I said, as always, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next fly.